In a sunlit garden, a blonde girl and a blue-haired girl laugh and play while a woman with blonde hair watches over them fondly. A memory of a loving blonde-haired mother embracing her smiling young daughter as they gaze into a mirror together. She recalls the kindness of a duke and duchess, who comfort her while their two young sons stand by. In another happy memory, she remembers playing with her foster sister and the two young masters, running hand in hand up a grand staircase. Her past self is captured in a moment of pure, radiant happiness, smiling without a care in the world. The joyful memories are shattered by a dark premonition of God's punishment striking the empire. In a horrific vision, the blue-haired girl cradles the lifeless body of her friend amidst a backdrop of blood and darkness. An orange-haired young woman stares in shock, a funeral in the background, as all of her lost memories suddenly come rushing back. She remembers a past life as an orphan who froze to death alone in a broken elevator, clutching a book. The book's world comes to life as two young men with glowing blue eyes face a colossal, demonic red snake. She was the villainess of that story, destined to use the two young masters to plunge the empire into despair. And her ultimate role was the final boss, the fearsome Queen of the Snakes, whose existence is now being violently erased. Back in the rain, the blonde-haired girl holds her crying blue-haired sister, realizing with dread that the Duke and Duchess have died from the plague, just as the novel foretold. Her eyes flash with red determination as she embraces her sister, vowing to prevent the tragic future she now remembers. She reflects that the novel had omitted the true, untold circumstances of the villains' lives after they lost their parents. Following their parents' deaths, the blonde girl and her blue-haired sister were completely locked away in a cold, desolate stone room. The blonde girl sits up in shock, enraged that the novel left out their cruel imprisonment and realizing why they became so twisted. Remembering how the two young masters would visit them in their confinement, she wonders if they could all survive such a place. A heartbreaking image reveals the four children, the two girls and two boys, huddled together for warmth and comfort, questioning if they can survive together. She recalls the precious innocence they lost, her sister's smile, the blue-haired boy's kindness, and the white-haired boy's pensive gaze. Those treasured memories of their youth and innocence are violently shattered into fragments. With a soft whoosh, a single candle flame is extinguished, symbolizing the end of their hope and light. The story introduces another powerful house, the Serpente family, major players in the empire's financial services. Despite their lack of a long history, the Serpente family commanded great influence, symbolized by the grand Bank of Python. A beautiful and serene woman with long, flowing white hair is introduced, surrounded by a soft floral aura. An older woman's hand rests on a young, white-haired man's shoulder against a backdrop of thorns, hinting at a painful past. The narrative reveals that the plague had tragically taken her father, leaving her to face the world alone. Devastated but resilient, the white-haired woman devoted herself to charity, helping those suffering from the plague in the imperial capital. Through her charitable work, she eventually met and captured the heart of the crown prince. The blonde-haired crown prince, seen from behind in his formal attire, is revealed to be the male protagonist of the novel. The novel's two protagonists are shown fighting through the discouragement of others, their love tested by opposition. They had to overcome numerous challenges and adversities, often orchestrated by shadowy figures with sinister smiles. But this seemingly beautiful fairy tale, framed by red roses, was haunted by its own share of terrible villains. The villains are revealed: the blonde girl and the two young masters, who had been living abroad to avoid the plague. The ultimate villainess who threw the empire into chaos is named Sasha Sanchez, a stunning orange-haired woman with a massive serpent coiled behind her. The inevitable conclusion for these antagonists is foretold against a splash of blood. The villains eventually meet gruesome deaths. A portrait depicts the villainous Sasha Sanchez charming the two young masters, embodying her manipulative role in the story. The scene shifts to the Serpente Manor in the year 1720, where onlookers stand before the grand estate, one lamenting that the heavens are cruel. A man recounts the recent tragedies to a woman, mourning the deaths of the imperial majesty, the duke, and the duchess by plague, leaving the young masters and lady orphaned. At a gravesite, the orange-haired Sasha comforts her crying blue-haired sister, agreeing with the mourner's sentiment and paying respects to their lost guardians. Sasha recalls her humble origins, remembering a portrait of her peasant mother in a simple green dress. She then remembers a portrait of the kind Duke and Duchess Serpente, who had always been warm to them, making her believe her life was happy. A sudden, painful memory hits her with a thud, showing the dark-haired orphan from her past life collapsing as she questions the vision. The truth crystallizes in a moment of panic as Sasha realizes with absolute certainty that she is not from this world. She remembers the full truth of her past life, dying alone as an orphan, trapped in a cold elevator while reading a book. The memory of the Duke and Duchess shatters as she grieves that fate was too cruel to even give her time to mourn her mother. Standing before the graves again, Sasha makes a silent, solemn promise to the deceased Duke and Duchess. Lying in bed, a sliver of her orange hair is visible as she rests. Fully awake, Sasha lies beside her sleeping blue-haired sister, her red eyes filled with a new, quiet resolve. Her determined gaze sharpens, ready to face the future and change their cruel fate. Rise, Sasha wakes up in an unfamiliar room, wondering where she is and why Estelle is sleeping beside her. Blink. Estelle's eyes slowly open as she begins to wake. Sasha gently strokes Estelle's hair, thinking to herself that her sister is still half asleep. Elsewhere, the blue-haired boy recognizes the girls' voices, telling his white-haired companion it must be Sasha and Estelle. Click. He opens a door and beams, surprised to see the girls are there too. Sasha looks on in confusion, questioning Lethius's presence. Lethius, now identified as 15 years old, smiles playfully. His 14-year-old brother Benya chides him, saying his cheerful reaction is ridiculous and questions his intelligence. Lethius explains they simply woke up in a strange room and assumed it was a prank. Holding Estelle, Sasha realizes with dread that if the boys don't know where they are, then none of them have any idea. Benya questions if a place like this ever existed in their manor, then scolds Lethius for not knowing, as the firstborn son. Grit. Lethius retorts that Benya doesn't know either, insisting he should be the one with the answers. The two boys squabble angrily as Sasha and Estelle watch. Sasha observes their bickering with a serious, thoughtful expression. Tap. Sasha steps in, reminding them they just buried the Duke and Duchess and that it's time to stop the game. Lethius laughs, telling Sasha he has her figured out. Believing she is trying to be strong, he tells her she's capable, but she turns away in annoyance. Estelle tugs on Sasha's sleeve, getting her attention. When Sasha responds, Estelle complains that it feels stuffy in the room. Sullen, Estelle pouts, declaring that she doesn't like this place. Benya interjects, explaining that they came up from the floor below. Sasha considers his words, assuming there must be an entrance downstairs. Lethius throws up his hands in frustration, explaining they already checked and found no exit, only a bathroom and dining room. Benya scoffs that Lethius probably didn't look carefully, prompting a gritted, angry smile from his brother. Ard. There really was nothing, Lethius shouts, but Sasha simply watches, thinking she'll see for herself. Deciding to investigate, Sasha leads the others downstairs to check again. Reaching the bottom of the staircase, she looks at a solid wall and realizes Lethius was right. Benya, Sasha, and Estelle cover their mouths in shock, seeing no doors anywhere. Sasha's mind races, certain that there has to be an exit somewhere. Crick! A sudden sound echoes as a boot shatters glass on the floor. Startled by the noise, Sasha and Estelle let out a scream. The boys burst into laughter, and an irritated Sasha demands to know what's so funny. Chuckle. Benya explains they're laughing because the girls' reaction was funny. He teases them for screaming like pigs, earning a furious glare from Sasha. Sasha smiles menacingly, preparing a sharp retort. Before she can speak, Benya points to a mirror on the wall, leaving her momentarily confused. As the four children stand together, Sasha thinks that she hadn't paid the mirror any mind when they first came down. She now questions the strange placement of a mirror in what seems to be a sealed-off basement. Approaching the ornate, adult-sized mirror, Sasha stands before it alone. Her expression hardens with determination as a thought begins to form. Staring at her reflection with the other children behind her, she admits to having a strange feeling about the mirror. Tap. Lethius touches her shoulder, asking if she is all right. Gasp. Startled from her thoughts, a blushing Sasha quickly confirms she's fine. Lethius theorizes that perhaps they were moved while they slept, to avoid frightening them. Sasha stares intently at her own reflection, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes. Benya watches with crossed arms, as the others try to comfort Sasha. Gazing at the mirror, Sasha thinks that while the situation feels like the novel, something is wrong. The Serpenti children were supposed to leave for their studies immediately after the funeral. Thump. Her heart races as she realizes the novel never explained what happened during the 2 years they were studying abroad. She questions if the novel ever mentioned anything beyond a simple line about them studying abroad. Sasha wonders if there was any detail in the book about the real life they lived during those 2 years. The question echoes in her mind. What kind of life did they actually live? Thump. Her heart pounds as the troubling realization begins to dawn on her. A cold sweat breaks out on her neck as she grapples with the terrifying gap in the story. The white-haired boy mentions that he told them Sasha and her sister must come to Physea with them. Creek, the blue-haired girl, gasps and grabs the blue-haired boy's arm, startled by a noise. The blue-haired girl nervously tells Sasha she hears strange sounds, and Sasha turns to her in concern. As a door creaks open behind him, the white-haired boy looks back in alarm. Clack! The sound of a lock or latch echoes ominously. Her heart thumps with fear as she wonders who is at the door, perhaps the one who imprisoned them. A man's voice calls out, "Children, are you in there?" causing the four of them to look up in unison. Sasha's eyes widen in recognition as she identifies the man outside. A man with light blue hair, Viscount Jerome Hippolyte, appears, and the blue-haired boy excitedly calls him Uncle Jerome, while the blue-haired girl cries in the background. Viscount Jerome learns the girl is crying over her doll, Ms. Wendy, which was a gift from a Lady Estelle. Rush. A maid is sent to fetch the missing doll. The maid returns with the doll, and as Sasha happily takes it for her sister, the Viscount calls her name. A white-gloved hand gently pats the pink rabbit doll. A voice praises the children with a simple, "Well done." Viscount Jerome affectionately pats the blue-haired girl's head, telling her to care for her precious doll, and she agrees. He was known as the Serpente children's favorite relative, always kind and attentive. A younger Sasha smiles, remembering the warmth and affection from their beloved uncle. Back in the present, Sasha blinks, recalling her past relief at his arrival when they were so anxious. The white-haired boy stands by, his expression one of quiet concern. The blue-haired boy tugs on his uncle's coat, complaining of hunger in the stuffy room, eager to leave. Sasha flinches, noticing Viscount Jerome's odd expression as he observes them. His smile seems strained as he agrees to let the children have their way. He leads them into a simple room with a wooden chandelier and suggests they take a seat. The four children sit opposite their uncle, waiting for him to speak. With a heavy sigh, Viscount Jerome informs them that their rooms were changed while they slept. Sasha listens silently, her expression grim as she processes his words. Your rooms were changed, she thinks, the phrase hanging in the air with unspoken meaning. The white-haired boy, ever calm, asks if they are still within the manor grounds. The Viscount explains to the white-haired boy, Benya, that this is a secret room, prompting Sasha to hope their stay won't be long. Viscount Jerome's expression darkens as he announces a change of plans for their immediate future. The children react with shock, demanding to know what he means. Overwhelmed, the Viscount explains it's too risky to move them to Valencia because of the dire situation in the capital. He reminds them that even royalty and their parents weren't safe, as a blood-spattered tiara illustrates the plague's reach. With an image of a shattered, blood-stained mirror, he calls the plague the punishment of God. He concludes by saying they were moved to this location because it was deemed the safest option. The children listen quietly, their faces obscured. Sasha internally scoffs, recognizing the plague not as divine punishment, but as a convenient plot device that will end as abruptly as it began. While acknowledging the logic of his decision, she can't shake a strange, unsettling feeling about the situation. The white-haired boy watches her, sensing her unspoken thoughts. He voices the question on everyone's mind, asking if they have to stay here now. Her sister gasps in dismay, but Sasha quickly tries to reassure her that it won't be for long. Viscount Jerome watches them, his expression a mask of inner turmoil. He grips his head in anguish, crying out that he can't afford to lose them too. The two young masters watch their uncle's breakdown in stunned silence. Lethius, the blue-haired boy, wonders how long they have to stay, while Benya complains about sharing a room with him. Viscount Jerome explains their stay will be short, only a week at most, as he plans to send them out of the country soon. Lethius reluctantly asks if they'll also have to eat in this strange place. Viscount Jerome assures them the Chamberlain will provide for them before announcing his departure. A thought warns that the airborne plague prevents them from leaving, but Benya complains about the dark and stuffy room. The Viscount tells them to endure it, then specifically tasks Sasha with caring for Estelle, promising a move to Physea later. With a bowed head, Sasha obediently responds, "Of course, my lord." Viscount Jerome offers a final, unsettling smirk as he concludes their conversation. The four children stand together in the dim light, their faces shadowed with uncertainty and gloom. Click. As a door closes, a man's voice apologizes to the young master for the unusual circumstances. A man introduces himself as Harris, the new chamberlain, leaving a surprised Lethius to question the sudden change. As Lethius questions the former Chamberlain's absence, Sasha reflects on his status as the family's firstborn son. Sasha looks on thoughtfully, considering the true nature hidden beneath Lethius's usual demeanor. Sasha's internal shock erupts as Harris reveals Chamberlain Karen died from the plague this morning, making him their sole contact. Standing before them, Harris sternly warns the children that they must not leave the room to avoid catching the plague. Harris turns his attention directly to a confused Sasha, singling her out. He instructs her on serving their meals, which have been delivered all at once for the entire day. Stunned, Sasha questions if this means they will only see him once per day. Teased, Harris scoffs, telling her she's old enough to understand he won't be serving every meal personally. Citing the threat of outsiders, Harris bids them goodbye and walks toward the mirror, prompting Sasha to ask about the food cart. He instructs her to leave the cart by the mirror, promising to retrieve it while they are asleep. Wham! As the door locks from the outside, Sasha anxiously presses her hands together, fearing for Estelle's health. The reality of being locked in sinks in as Sasha stares at the door, her primary concern being Estelle's potential illness. Realizing she is powerless against the novel's plot, Sasha's fear for a sleeping Estelle intensifies. A painful memory from the novel surfaces. Estelle, gravely ill, surrounded by the others, bringing present-day Sasha to tears. Benya approaches Sasha by the mirror, questioning her actions and reminding her of the dangers they were warned about. Sasha counters that their being locked in is what's truly strange, a fact Benya doesn't immediately grasp. Benya rationalizes the locked door, suggesting it's a precaution against them trying to escape out of frustration. Although she concedes his point, Sasha can't shake a deep, unsettling feeling about their confinement. Resolving to stay calm, Sasha reminds herself that knowing the future doesn't mean she knows every detail. Estelle interrupts Sasha's troubled thoughts with a tight embrace, calling out her name. Cuddling close, Estelle announces she's hungry and innocently asks if Sasha is as well. A simple but decent meal is set on the table, ready for the children. With the food arranged, Sasha invites everyone to come and eat. Benya grumbles under his breath, realizing the decent meal leaves no room for complaints. Lethius dismisses the complaints, reminding them their confinement is only for a few days. Benya snaps that his comment was for Lethius, who he calls a whiner, prompting an irritated response. Click! Sasha opens a door, sighing to herself about the boy's immaturity. Shock! Lethius recoils in theatrical horror, devastated by the lack of syrup for the pancakes. Sasha calmly points out the bottle of syrup, sitting right beside him. Awkward, Lethius rubs his head sheepishly as Sasha asks for the syrup bottle. Snatch! Lethius pulls the bottle back, insisting that he will be the one to pour the syrup. Glug, glug. He begins to pour the golden syrup over the food. Benya tries to wrestle the bottle from Lethius, who protests that his actions are for everyone's benefit. With a facepalm, Benya sarcastically thanks him, and Lethius earnestly tells him he should be grateful. Slam! A fist crashes down onto the table in a burst of frustration. Flinch. The boys freeze, startled by Estelle's sudden intervention from between them. With a grim expression, Estelle firmly demands that they stop their fighting. Drag. Properly scolded, the two boys slump back into their seats at the table. Sasha beams with delight as she brings another covered dish to the table. The meal is over, leaving nothing but clean, empty plates on the table. Clack. Lethius wonders about the purpose of their new room. Noting its disuse makes him curious, since he never knew it existed in the manor. Benya teases his brother, questioning why the heir doesn't know everything about his own manor. Flustered, Lethius insists he just wasn't told yet, recalling that his father said he had much to learn as the heir. He chokes up slightly, blushing as he remembers the conversation. As he finishes his thought, recalling his father's words, Benya suddenly halts his movements. Tisk. Benya clicks his tongue, his expression turning somber. Nearby, Sasha and her sister sit silently, their faces unseen. Sniffle. The blue-haired girl tearfully says she misses her daddy. Sob. She cries that she also misses her mom and someone named Sylvian as Sasha pulls her into a comforting hug. As Sasha holds her crying sister, she silently grieves for her own mother. Benya appears at the door, asking Sasha where Estelle is, and she quietly replies that her sister is asleep. Benya surmises that Estelle must be stressed, but Lethius groans that it can't be helped. Now that Estelle is asleep, Sasha wonders what they should do, and Benya excitedly suggests they go exploring. Sasha looks at him with uncertainty, questioning his idea. Benya eagerly describes a strange room downstairs that looks like a combination of a study and a storage area. He teases that they might find something interesting, but Sasha dismisses the idea, reminding him they'll be leaving in a few days. Though she complains that the place is dark and old, Sasha admits that she's feeling curious as well. She speculates on the room's purpose, concluding its strange size and style make it a perfect hiding place. Lethius chimes in that he's coming too and suggests bringing a candle, which Benya agrees is a good idea. FWIPA match strikes, and a candle within a lantern flickers to life. With their lanterns ready, the three children cheerfully set off to begin their exploration. They proceed down a dark, cobweb-laden corridor lined with ornate chandeliers. Entering a new room, Benya is amazed to discover a huge library filled with bookshelves. Sasha notes the vast number of dusty books, while Benya finds it amusing that a library would be hidden here. Lethius crouches on the wooden floor, staring up in awe at something out of view. "Whoa!" he exclaims, startling Sasha, who flinches in surprise before scolding him, but he just tells her to look. He points upward, revealing a high window covered with a blue cloth. The other two children look up, stunned to see a window in their secret room. Sasha and Benya share a concerned glance as she wonders what this discovery could mean. She realizes aloud that looking out the window could finally reveal their true location. All three of them stand together, staring up at the mysterious, cloth-covered window. The thought hangs in the air. If they can get to that window, they'll know where they are. Sasha worries about how to reach it, but a hand points out a rickety wooden ladder leaning against a bookshelf. Rattle! The old ladder shifts slightly. Benya examines the ladder, noting that it looks very old and fragile. Lethius dismisses Benya's own suitability, and a frustrated Benya wonders what they should do. Lethius thoughtfully suggests that Sasha, being the lightest, should be the one to climb. Glare! Sasha and Benya both glare disapprovingly at him, and he innocently asks what's wrong. Flinch! Lethius quickly backpedals, insisting they misunderstood his meaning. Swish! He explains that he and Benya can catch Sasha if she falls, but if he were to fall, they would both just run away. The boys share a laugh, with Lethius callously asking Benya why he would ever bother catching him. Snap! The two brothers begin to bicker, trading insults about being the firstborn and not acting like a proper brother. Shove! Sasha pushes them apart, ordering them both to stop fighting. Looking up at the perilous ladder, she expresses her doubts, warning that they could get seriously hurt. In perfect unison, the two boys shout that, of course, they should still do it. They argue that they must explore to understand what part of the manor they've been hidden in. Sasha thoughtfully remarks that they should have simply asked the Viscount where they were earlier. Both boys look away, flustered, admitting that she has a point. Sasha watches them, realizing with a sinking feeling that they intentionally avoided asking their uncle. She understands their silence. They were either too afraid of what his answer might be, or feared he wouldn't give them one at all. Sasha sighs with relief, realizing she wasn't the only one who felt something was out of place. Tap! Her hand grips the wooden ladder as she resolves not to make the boys any more anxious. Looking up at the challenge ahead, she steels herself, determined to help as much as possible. Rattle! She reaches for the cloth-covered window, wondering about what lies beyond it. Crumble! As she touches the window, the frame begins to give way, and she panics. Whoosh! Benya looks up in alarm, shouting for her to watch out. Crack! The rung of the old ladder snaps under her foot. Still clinging to the broken ladder, Sasha glares down at the boys and accuses one of them of breaking it on purpose. As a voice apologizes, Sasha internally fumes about the old, worn-out ladder. Peering through the opening, she finds that she can see nothing but the sky. Swoosh! The wind blows through her hair as she stands at the window, taking in the view. From below, the two boys call up to Sasha, asking if she can see anything. She shields her eyes from the sun, admitting that she's not sure what she's looking at. As she struggles to get a better view, she wonders what she's seeing. She leans out further to see, prompting a worried shout from below to watch out. A sudden thump makes her gasp as a boot steps onto the crumbling window ledge. Crack. The window frame breaks completely, and she stares in shock at the sudden turn of events. Below, the two boys shout in absolute horror. Screaming, Sasha falls backward from the window as the boys cry out her name in terror. Ack! With a crash, her fall is broken as she lands directly on top of Benya. Ugh! Sasha clutches her head, groaning in pain from the impact. Lethius rushes to her side, asking if she's alright, as Sasha fumes over the ladder's weakness. Grit. She angrily reminds Benya that he promised to catch her while he lies on the floor looking defeated. Gasp! A sudden wave of panic hits her, as she realizes Benya must be hurt from her fall. She frantically asks if he's alive, but he just tells her to get off so he doesn't die from the weight. Lethius checks if she's hurt and asks what she saw that made her turn so quickly, and she begins to explain. She reveals that from the window, she saw the bell tower belonging to the manor's private chapel. Benya is surprised, remarking that it's a random thing to have found. Sasha asks if either of them knew about it, and Benya quickly passes the question to Lethius. Lethius admits he never imagined the bell tower could contain a room, and Benya nods, equally surprised. Sasha sighs, a weary smile on her face as the mystery is partially solved. Lethius groans, realizing the bell will likely be very loud when it rings at noon. Sasha looks on with concern, hoping the loud noise won't frighten her sister Estelle. Looking at their sparse room, she realizes it's the safest spot in the manor, but also the most isolated. She concludes that most people would never even imagine such a place exists within the bell tower. A horrifying thought dawns. Trapped behind a mirrored door, with a fatal drop from the window, no one would ever hear their screams. The realization sinks in that this unused, hidden place is the perfect prison to lock them away forever. An image of a sinister, shadowy man with a familiar green brooch flashes in her mind. Thud. Her heart drops as the terrifying implication of their situation hits her. She and Benya stand in silence, a heavy, unspoken understanding passing between them. Having confirmed their location, Sasha decides to head back upstairs and check on Estelle. Later, Sasha, now in a pink dress with her hair styled, holds a brush and smiles brightly. Estelle, her blue hair being brushed, complains that she feels stuffy in the room. As Sasha brushes her hair, Estelle grumbles about the loud bell ringing and wishes they could open a window, making Sasha wish she could complain so freely. A single tear escapes Sasha's eye as she listens to her sister. She puts on a brave face, smiling gently as she continues to care for Estelle. Sasha looks at a rack of dresses in dismay, realizing none of her own clothes have been brought to their new room. She explains that when she told Estelle, her sister simply offered her own clothes to wear. In fact, Estelle seemed rather excited by the idea, as if she were dressing up a doll. Sasha laughs with her eyes closed, genuinely enjoying the moment as she styles her sister's hair. Facing away, she recalls the Chamberlain's promise to provide them with anything they need. However, she notes that a man named Mr. Harris only left food on a cart while they slept, and neither he nor Viscount Jerome ever appeared in person. After tying a red ribbon in Estelle's hair, she tells her it's done, realizing it will have been a full week by tomorrow. With a strained smile, Sasha wonders why their guardians never visit them at all. A disquieting thought crosses her mind. What if something terrible happened during that week? As Estelle looks on sweetly, Sasha hopes that she's just worrying over nothing. At the dinner table, Estelle stares at her meal with a look of clear disgust. Estelle complains about being served the same cold food every day, but Sasha reassures her, saying they'll be leaving tomorrow. Lethius chimes in excitedly, asking what everyone wants to eat first when they return. Sparkle. Estelle's eyes light up as she immediately answers, cheese. Lethius lists perch and veal stew, while Benya cheerfully suggests they storm the chef, to which Estelle agrees. Surprised, Sasha looks up from her food as she's asked what she wants to eat. She hesitantly suggests a cream cake, and a smiling Lethius says he knew it. Lethius recalls giving her all his desserts when they were young, adding that his mother scolded him for it. Benya looks sullen, remembering that his mother scolded him even more, thinking Sasha had pressured him into it. Flinch. Benya smirks and teases Lethius that his desserts are why Sasha is as heavy as lead, making her furious. Sasha fumes, thinking she should have landed on Benya harder, while Lethius looks on in shock. Feigning innocence, Benya asks what he did to upset her. Lethius accuses Benya of ruining the mood and complains that he's not allowed to say anything. An irritated Benya points a finger, retorting that Lethius is the one making a fuss. Grit. Lethius glares, angrily challenging his brother over the insult. Sasha springs to her feet, holding Estelle back as she orders both boys to stop fighting. She scolds them for frightening Estelle, who looks up with a worried expression. Both boys look away, abashed and silent after being called out. HMPH. Benya relents with a curt, fine. Slam! He storms out of the room, declaring he'll get out of their faces. Lethius glares at the closed door, fuming that his brother should know he's the one to blame. Sasha grabs Lethius's arm, telling him to stop because fighting won't help, especially in front of Estelle. Lethius finally calms down and agrees to let it go, much to Sasha's nervous relief. Sweat. Sasha worries that the boys' restlessness will lead to a bigger fight if it continues. She muses that they are baby villains after all, but wonders what specifically made Benya so sensitive. Blink. Sasha's eyes open as she wakes from her sleep. Rustle. She sits up in bed, the morning light filtering into the room. Standing near the door, she reminds herself that today is the day they are finally getting out. Holding a candle, she walks through the gloomy room, attributing her wakefulness to excitement, until her eyes land on the familiar food cart. Clack! She lifts a lid to find the same stack of pancakes as always. A worried thought crosses her mind as she remembers they are supposed to leave today. Grim gloom descends upon her as she questions why a meal has been left for them as usual. Biting her finger anxiously, she tries to calm herself down. She reasons that their departure might just be delayed, but still feels uneasy about the food being left while they're gone. Tap! Benya suddenly places a hand on her shoulder, making her jump in shock as he asks what she's doing. He asks why she's so startled as her heart pounds in her chest. Forcing a smile, Sasha notes he's up early and hopes he's feeling better after his outburst yesterday. Benya points at her accusingly, turning the question back on her and asking what she is doing there. She explains that she came to check if Mr. Harris or the Viscount had arrived, but seeing the food cart confirms they haven't. She trails off with an awkward smile, feeling flustered. Her worried eyes reaffirm the unsettling truth. The cart is there, meaning no one is coming for them. Benya looks down at her, his expression serious and intense. They stare at each other, a heavy, unspoken dread hanging in the air between them. Sigh, Benya wonders what the point of waiting is, trying to convince himself that someone will come for them today. Sasha points to the food cart, noting that a full day's worth of meals has been delivered again. He acknowledges the ominous sign, but shrugs it off, suggesting the food is just a precaution in case their guardians are late. Sasha points out that they were supposed to leave today, but no one has explained anything, not even to him and Lethius, making him flinch. Benya tensely asks what her point is, as Sasha looks back with serious intent. She internally debates her next move, recalling a past warning about their relatives possibly scheming against them. She decides against voicing her suspicions, believing such an accusation would only offend Benya. Sasha reflects that while she may become important to the brothers later, they are not yet close enough for such trust. She reminds herself that she is not the original Sasha from the novel, comparing her current self to the villainess's elegant image. Her thoughts continue as she clutches her sleeve, considering the consequences of straying from the novel's plot. Fearing their bond might break, she resolves to build her own influence and power once they are free. To avoid the tragedies foretold in the novel, she knows she must not lose her connection with the Serpente children. Back in the present, she hesitates, wondering how to speak to Benya without upsetting him as a hand reaches for her. Flick! He flicks her forehead, making her cry out in surprise. Whoosh! Holding her head, she angrily asks what he did that for. Benya laughs, vowing to teach their guardians some manners once they are finally out of their confinement. Touching her forehead with a relieved smile, Sasha is glad to see him acting like his usual self again. Rumble! Benya complains that he's hungry, prompting Sasha to ask why he stormed off during dinner and what he was doing in the library. He deflects her questions and cheekily offers to show her something he found. Grib! He suddenly grabs her hand. Holding a candle, he leads the surprised Sasha away. Leading her towards a wall of bookshelves, he tells her to follow him this way. Gasp! Inside the library, Sasha stares in utter shock at the scene before her. She finds Benya on the floor beside a pile of broken ladders, and he cheerfully asks what she thinks he was doing. Gasp! Realizing he was recklessly testing the old ladders, she scolds him for not acting like a proper noble. He smiles, brushing off her concern by saying the only thing that matters is that he didn't get hurt. Flap! To her shock, she looks up to see Benya sitting casually in a high window, inviting her to join him. Panicked, she yells at him, asking if he's lost his mind and ordering him to get back inside immediately. Smug, Benya refuses and playfully challenges her to come up and get him herself, much to her fury. Tap! She begrudgingly begins to climb the ladder, torn between wanting to let the little villain fall and needing to change his fate. Muttering that his mother would have disciplined him for this, she starts to call out his name. Flinch. Her eyes widen in sudden terror. Whoosh! The window is now empty, and she calls his name in a panic. Badum. Her heart pounds with dread as she fears the worst. Bottom. As she reaches the top, frantically wondering if he fell, a hand suddenly appears from below the ledge. Benya is standing safely on a stone gargoyle outside, smiling as he offers his hand to help her down. Sasha is left utterly speechless by the terrifying prank. He reassures her with a bright smile, promising he won't let her fall. Sasha sits uncertainly on the windowsill, still hesitant to make the jump. He calmly instructs her to grab his hand, and drop down onto the gargoyle's wing. Taking a breath, she silently vows to haunt him as a ghost if she dies. She takes a leap of faith, jumping from the window into his arms. Step, her boots land securely on the stone surface beside his feet. After catching her, he cheerfully tells her she did a good job, but she just flinches in his arms, still annoyed. He teases that perhaps she secretly wanted to jump all along, making her seriously consider hitting him. The scene transitions, showing autumn leaves against a soft sky. Now sitting together on the gargoyle, Benya comments that the sunset view was even better the day before. With a thoughtful expression, he admits that he spent his time out here thinking about things. Looking out at the horizon together, Sasha asks him what he was thinking about. Sasha vaguely explains she was thinking about parents, prompting Benya to ask if she is all right. Benya looks down at her with a gentle expression, admitting he's just glad she's safe. A blush creeps across Sasha's face as she offers him a slightly flustered smile. Benya looks away in contemplative silence. He explains he was wondering what would happen to Estelle without her, admitting that he and Lethius would have struggled too. Sasha's eyes widen slightly as she realizes he's right. She reflects on the past, remembering that Lethius and Estelle were always close, while Benya was more distant and aloof. Realizing how shocking his confession was, Sasha reassures him that everything will be fine. Just as a door opens with a creak, Lethius appears behind them, looking utterly bewildered. He points accusingly, demanding to know why Sasha and Benya are coming out of the library together. Benya, annoyed, asks when Lethius woke up, while Sasha looks equally unamused by the interruption. With a mischievous grin, Lethius presses them, asking what they were doing in there. Benya explains he was considering the family's priorities, unlike Lethius, the heir, prompting a gritted teeth response from his brother. Lethius scoffs sarcastically as the scene focuses on the open library door. With his eyes closed, Benya smiles placidly. Lethius furiously claims Benya would ruin the family, but Benya calmly states he wasn't talking about himself. To Sasha's complete shock, Benya suggests handing the family's future over to her. Lethius warns his brother that Sasha might just kick them out, and Benya concedes he has a point. Sasha recalls that while the children argued occasionally, their recent fights feel different. Sigh. She smiles, relieved that the moment of tension has passed. But as darkness falls, their hopes begin to dim. The days pass with no news from the outside world. Toss. A napkin is thrown down in frustration as someone shouts their desire to leave. Estelle explodes with anger, demanding to know why they are still there when they were only supposed to wait a week. As Estelle calls them all liars, Sasha tries to placate her, insisting it's only for today. Estelle rejects the foul-tasting food, tired of hearing the same empty promise every day, leaving Sasha to fret over the difficult situation. Lethius calmly tells Estelle to eat, reasoning that the situation for their uncle and relatives must have worsened. He reminds her to be patient like a proper noble, and she reluctantly sits down as Sasha notes 2 weeks have passed. Worried by the silent food deliveries, Sasha decides to stay up and watch for visitors when she hears a door creak. Estelle looks up from her seat, her eyes wide with surprise. She happily calls out to her uncle, Viscount Jerome, who has finally appeared, looking exhausted. Inside a pantry, Viscount Jerome clasps his hands, his face etched with worry. Sasha asks what's wrong, but Lethius cuts straight to the point, asking their uncle if he's not there to take them away. Benya declares that they can no longer stay there no matter how severe the situation is outside. He urgently reminds his uncle of Estelle's illness, causing Viscount Jerome to look away in distress. The Viscount finally reveals the grim truth. A deadly infection has killed the Prime Minister, the Bishop, and even people who moved into their manor for safety. He throws his hands up in exasperation, questioning how they can be so carefree. Under these circumstances, he asks, as the 4 children stand before him in grim silence. Hug. Sasha embraces Estelle, wondering how they are meant to survive trapped in such a place. Their harsh reality sets in. They are confined to a small space with no servants to attend to them. They are forced to eat the same bland food and endure freezing cold showers, with only difficult ancient books and no games. They have nothing to occupy their time. Sasha's gaze hardens as she questions if their treatment is any better than that of livestock. Flinch. Viscount Jerome recoils slightly, his expression strained as he faces Sasha. HMPH. He looks down at Estelle with a sharp gaze, saying, "And you?" As Sasha holds her, Estelle quietly explains that she didn't have any other clothes to wear. The Viscount looks away, ashamed, and apologizes to Estelle for his oversight. Benya furiously confronts his uncle about the Chamberlain, who sneaks in and out without checking on them. He declares they feel like they're being bred, not cared for, as Viscount Jerome listens with growing unease. Sigh. As Benya demands a reason for their confinement, the Viscount can only admit he doesn't know when things outside will get better. Clench. Viscount Jerome clasps his hands, vowing to do everything to keep the children safe until the cursed plague subsides. He turns away, looking out at a dark and foreboding sky, burdened by his decision. The children stand together in silence, and Sasha thinks they can no longer complain given the dire circumstances. Crying in Sasha's arms, Estelle says she can't take it anymore, while Benya demands their uncle at least tell them when they can leave. Benya promises they will endure it, no matter how long, if their uncle will just give them a firm date. Done. As his uncle looks on in distress, Benya warns that they will only grow to resent him if he keeps postponing their release. Squeeze. After a tense moment, the Viscount finally relents, stating they must wait one more month, leaving Benya stunned. Droop. Viscount Jerome hangs his head, admitting he knows it's a difficult thing to ask of them. He promises to send for them in a month regardless of the situation, and the children reluctantly agree. Step. The scene transitions as Sasha walks toward a wardrobe. A flashback shows a younger Sasha with blonde hair, smiling happily in a nice dress. Sullen. In the present, a pouting Estelle remains silent. Lying in bed, Estelle asks Sasha to wear her clothes again sometime, making Sasha realize her sister enjoyed dressing her up. Sasha cheerfully announces they've been given a stove for warm baths, but Estelle just flops onto her bed, questioning the point of it all. As Estelle complains about her frustration, Sasha agrees that being trapped for a month with nothing to do is harsh. Sasha narrates that their needs were simple. They needed something to occupy their time so they wouldn't lose their minds. Continuing her thought while walking upstairs with a candle, she adds they also needed a window to keep track of time. She recalls one such place in the annex, but notes they always avoided it because it was too dirty. Done. Dick's done. The memory reveals a dilapidated room with broken floorboards and thick cobwebs. Entering the dusty, abandoned library with her candle, Sasha thinks it's tragic and understands why they never came here. A voice from within the library calls out, asking Sasha what she is doing. She finds Benya already there and asks why he's just standing in the dark. Sasha explains her idea to turn the library into a usable space for them all. She suggests that a cleaner room would allow Estelle to play and feel less frustrated, but Benya seems hesitant. Sasha gives him a questioning look, wondering about his reluctance. Yawn. Benya yawns widely, then has a sudden realization. Sasha smirks, realizing that as a pampered young lord, he probably has no idea how to even begin cleaning. Benya tells a newly arrived Lethius about Sasha's idea, but Lethius points out they can't call any servants for help. The brother suddenly grabs Sasha, anxiously asking if she saw anyone else come in, but she confirms it was just the chamberlain. Ta-da! Sasha proudly presents herself, declaring that she will be the one to clean the library. The two brothers are left utterly speechless and shocked by her proclamation. She beams at them with a wide, confident smile. After considering that it would be nice to be less bored, the boys agree, and Sasha smirks, asking if they're ready to start. With renewed purpose, she announces that their first task is to remove all the dust. Chirp, chirp. Time passes as birds are heard outside the library window. After their hard work, Sasha, Benya, and Lethius are all completely exhausted on the floor, but Sasha sits up, saying it will be worth it to make Estelle happy. Just then, Estelle's voice is heard from the doorway, calling Sasha's name. Startled, Estelle enters the room, surprised to find them all awake. She asks what they're doing, and an exhausted Sasha sheepishly explains they were cleaning. Lethius, covered in dust but smiling, proudly tells Estelle they dusted all the books for her to read. Lying happily on the clean floor, Benya muses that a hammock would be perfect for napping by the window. Estelle gently warns Benya not to climb anywhere dangerous again, and he reassures her he won't fall. Sasha enthusiastically suggests they can even play hide-and-seek in the newly spacious library. Turning to her sister, Sasha asks what she thinks of their hard work. Estelle's face lights up with a radiant, joyful smile. The narration explains they spent much better days after cleaning the library, playing games together to pass the time. However, the fun is temporary, as Estelle is soon seen rubbing her tired eyes while Sasha watches with concern. As Estelle groans in discomfort, Sasha reflects that they struggled to stay happy to conceal a growing, ominous premonition. Their spirits sink as they are once again faced with the same unchanging, unappetizing meal. A discarded note reveals their attempts to communicate with their caretakers were futile, as the requests for necessities were ignored. Scritch, a hand uses a knife to carve another tally mark on the wall, counting the passing days. As Sasha stares at the wall of tally marks, the narration states that their promised month was slowly drawing to an end. Splash, splosh, bare feet step onto a sopping wet sheet on the floor, in a moment of domestic work. Phew! Wiping her brow, Sasha takes a brief moment to catch her breath from her chores. While washing blankets, Sasha reflects that she has learned how to do laundry, a humbling experience that made her realize her past privileges. Spread. As she hangs a shirt to dry, Sasha frames her new chores as practice for life on the outside. Glance. Sasha looks proudly at the freshly cleaned, sparkling dresses, glad for the practice she's getting. Squeak. While carefully cleaning a jeweled dress, Sasha realizes she's learning a valuable skill that could help her stay by the children's side. Gasp. She turns around suddenly, startled by an unexpected presence behind her. Sasha smiles sheepishly at Benya, asking if he's referring to her cleaning and polishing. Benya angrily questions why Sasha is cleaning dresses she never even wears, but she calmly explains they were dirty. Snap. Sasha retorts that whether she wore them is irrelevant, pointing out that he doesn't like them dirty either. GR. As Benya's frustration mounts, he suddenly grabs Sasha's arm with a tight grip. Squeeze. Benya confronts Sasha, demanding to know why she's acting like a servant when all she ever did before was play with them. Done. Held tightly by the shoulders, Sasha looks up at him, shocked and hurt by his sharp words. Benya turns away, feeling nauseous from his own outburst, while Sasha sadly thinks she only wanted to help. Snip. Benya's eyes betray his inner turmoil and regret. Wretch. Reaching out, he stammers Sasha's name, trying to take back his harsh words. He gently cups her face and apologizes, but Sasha thinks to herself what a jerk he is for making her cry. I was wrong. I'm sorry, he says, leaving Sasha utterly surprised by his sincere apology. As Benya awkwardly apologizes for venting his frustrations, a dazed Sasha can't believe it and accepts his offer to help. Sasha shows an uncertain Benya how to gently polish a jewel, thinking she's never seen him act this way before. The scene transitions, showing the stone exterior of their confinement. Flip. Benya struggles with a large sheet, complaining about how tiring it is, as Sasha quietly praises his effort. Sigh. Benya looks out the window, remarking that this ordeal has taught him things he'll never have to do again, and Sasha agrees no one would believe them. He turns back, wondering aloud if they will ever be able to get out of there at all. Sasha looks at him intently, asking what he truly meant when he apologized for venting earlier. Benya looks away coolly, telling her that she already knows what it means. The two stand in a heavy silence, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Sasha gives voice to her darkest fear, asking Benya if he thinks their relatives might be keeping them there on purpose. He just smiles knowingly, and Sasha's face falls as she realizes the grim truth in his silence. Sasha understands with dawning horror that Benya has known their relatives' true intentions for a while. Ring. The bell signals another meal, but the mood is somber as Lethius rests his head on the table in despair. Benya sips from his mug, watching his weary brother in silence. Breaking the quiet, Benya coldly tells Lethius that only he would think of such unoriginal pranks that deserve punishment. Lethius angrily asks if Benya has any respect for him, but Benya dismisses him, questioning if there's anything about him worth respecting. As Estelle watches, Lethius turns his suspicion on Sasha, offering to forgive her if she confesses. Sasha looks utterly bewildered, stammering as she asks what he is talking about. Lethius accuses Sasha of being the mastermind behind an elaborate prank, an idea Benya finds amusing, leaving Sasha speechless. Horrified by their paranoia, Sasha thinks they're all losing their minds from the isolation. Pull. Estelle tugs on Sasha's sleeve, asking if she is the scary witch from the fairy tales. Squeeze. Estelle anxiously pleads for confirmation that Sasha isn't a witch, and the accusation leaves Sasha reeling in shock. Sasha's world tilts as she processes the absurd accusation from her own sister. Estelle, not you too. Sasha thinks in utter disbelief and despair. Pat. A fond memory surfaces of Estelle telling someone that if he became king, she would be his queen. The memory continues, showing a blonde-haired Sasha stroking Estelle's hair as she sleeps, singing a lullaby. Zez. In the memory, Estelle sleeps soundly while hugging a pink rabbit doll, lulled by Sasha's mother's song. Sasha recalls that her mother's lullaby was the only thing that could put the restless Estelle to sleep. Sasha looks down sadly, recalling how she clumsily made the pink rabbit doll from an old nightgown to help a stressed Estelle sleep. Though Estelle was getting too old for dolls, She cherished the one Sasha made for her. The narration notes that Estelle was already 12 by that point, as she's shown sadly clutching her pink rabbit doll. While tucking a sleeping Estelle into bed, Sasha worries that their confinement is causing them to mentally regress. Standing before a locked door, Sasha realizes with a sigh that there is nothing they can do. Sasha reflects on the passage of time, noting that after a month and 3 weeks, the plague should be subsiding. As she walks up the stairs, she realizes there is no reason for them to still be here, yet no news of their release has come. The grim truth dawns on Sasha. Their relatives never had any intention of letting them out of the tower. She realizes the servants must be complicit, swapping their food trays in secret, and fears that any outburst could lead to them being starved. Staring out the library window, Sasha thinks how dreadful it is to realize the story of the siblings studying abroad was a complete fabrication. She deduces that the Collateral family plans to eliminate the children, seize the family fortune, and fake their deaths using body doubles. Sasha thoughtfully wonders why their captors are keeping them alive instead of simply getting rid of them. She theorizes that killing them all would arouse suspicion from the bank and the Emperor's Knights, recalling Jerome's lie about protecting them from the plague. She bites her thumbnail in anxious thought. Sasha realizes that even if they escape, Jerome could easily justify his actions by claiming he was only trying to protect them. Flinch. Startled by Letheus calling her name, Sasha turns around as he asks if Estelle is asleep. Sasha smiles and confirms that she sang Estelle her mother's lullaby, and she fell right to sleep. Flip. Sasha asks awkwardly if he's ignoring her when he silently turns a page in his book. Across the room, Benya looks up from his chessboard and asks Sasha if she would sing the lullaby for him, admitting he's been having trouble sleeping. He cheekily suggests they play chess, dismissing their age difference. Sasha scoffs at his offer, sarcastically accepting his challenge to be treated as an equal if she wins. Agreeing to the game, Sasha sets the condition that she'll leave if Estelle wakes up, as a candle burns beside them. The candle wax drips and pools in its holder, marking the passage of time. Holding the nearly spent candle, Sasha notes that it's time for a new one. Benya looks over from his seat, asking why she's just standing there. Sasha voices her concern about what they will do when they eventually run out of candles. Bepheft. Benya smirks, remarking that it will be winter soon. Slip. He then asks if she could make him a duvet blanket, like the funny deer doll she made for Estelle. Sasha corrects him that the doll is a rabbit, not a deer, and wonders where she'd find feathers, while Benya acknowledges they have no livestock for materials. Benya tells her not to worry about candles, saying they have plenty of other things to burn. Rise. He holds up a large book, revealing his grim solution for staying warm and having light. Sasha expresses her relief as Letheus suggests they start collecting books to burn, adding they can also use the fire to warm water for Estelle. Flip. He carelessly tosses a book aside. Letheus's face contorts in sudden, unexplained anger. Point. He furiously points at Sasha, yelling that her constant grumbling gets on his nerves, leaving her stunned. Sasha tries to defend herself, but Letheus shouts for her to stop worrying about things she can't control. Thud. His rage boils over as he shouts that he is not her brother and she is not his sister. Letheus furiously tells Sasha to stop overstepping her bounds and to get out, leaving her speechless with hurt. From his seat, Benya watches the confrontation with a cool, knowing smirk. He tells Letheus to stop, explaining that he's sick of seeing Sasha sulk by herself. Grit. Letheus turns his anger on his brother, demanding to know what he just said. Benya calmly challenges him, stating that Letheus is the one ruining things and should be the one to leave instead of venting his anger on Sasha. Yank. Enraged, Letheus grabs Benya by the collar, calling him a little brat. Sasha desperately screams for the young masters to stop fighting. She throws herself between the brothers to break up the fight, shocking them both into silence as Letheus flinches back. Choke! Flustered and blushing, Sasha clarifies that she's scolding both of them. Burst. Frustrated, Sasha throws the door open and storms out, yelling that she'll leave. Slam. Sniffle. Alone in the hallway, Sasha quietly cries. Wipe. As she wipes away a tear, she thinks to herself that she never knew he felt that way. Walking up the stairs, Sasha reflects on Letheus's words, believing she always knew her place in their social hierarchy. She wonders if she was the only one who was mistaken about their relationship. A happy memory surfaces of the four of them together, making Sasha question if she has been overstepping her bounds and forgetting her place as a servant. She recoils in horror, wondering if she's becoming just like the villainess from the novel. Splish. Oof! In the bath, Estelle flinches as a bucket of water is suddenly splashed over her. Sullen, Estelle shivers in the bathtub, complaining about the cold and asking if she can wash later. Sasha refuses, explaining that it will only get colder and reassuring Estelle that she's already heated the water. Grumble. Still sulking, Estelle peeks over the tub and tries to postpone her bath until tomorrow. As Estelle argues that no one will notice if she skips her bath, Sasha silently holds a bottle of soap. Sasha closes her eyes for a moment before asking what her sister means. She thinks to herself that she and the brothers would notice, fearing it would be the start of a downward spiral if they become lazy. Sasha reflects that while the bath is for Estelle's health, it's also crucial for maintaining their dignity as nobles. She worries that if they start letting go of their standards in these poor conditions, things will only get worse. Resolved, Sasha urges Estelle to finish her bath quickly. Nibble! The scene shifts to a sparse bedroom where a faint sound is heard. Mumble. Alone in his room, a distressed Lethius anxiously nibbles his fingers. Sasha cautiously opens his door, asking the mumbling Lethius for permission to enter. He looks up as Sasha explains she brought lamp oil to warm the bath and also heated their food to make it better. His unexpectedly calm demeanor leaves Sasha momentarily confused. While Sasha wonders about his change in mood, Lethius internally despairs that they'll be eating the same food for weeks. As Lethius privately compares their situation to being pigs in captivity, Benya appears at the door and greets Sasha. Outside and looking refreshed, Benya happily thanks Sasha for heating the bath. A slightly flustered Sasha awkwardly wishes Benya a good morning. Benya calls for his brother to come to breakfast, and Sasha silently urges Lethius to join them. The four sit together at the breakfast table, in a tense, uncomfortable silence. Sasha observes the awkward atmosphere, noting that Lethius has been gloomy ever since their fight, while Benya seems completely unfazed. Benya asks Sasha to write a note requesting more lamp oil, and she agrees to add a request for Christmas supplies as well. The mention of Christmas distresses Estelle, who tearfully admits she doesn't want to spend the holiday there and fears they'll be forgotten. Flinch Estelle collapses onto the table in despair, shocking Sasha and causing Lethius to react. Tap. A fork is placed deliberately onto the table. With a cold stare, Lethius intensely demands to know who told Estelle they would still be there for Christmas. Glare. His suspicion lands on Sasha, and he menacingly asks if it was her again, making her flinch. Just as Sasha decides to change the subject, Lethius's anger erupts, and he once again blames her for the situation. Point. He accusingly points his fork at Sasha. Lethius furiously warns Sasha to stop whispering nonsense into his sister's ears, leaving Sasha stunned that he could be serious. Estelle tries to defend Sasha, but Lethius cruelly mocks her for enjoying fairy tales and carrying a doll at her age. He continues his tirade, calling Estelle a disgrace to the family who will become an outcast in high society, leaving her heartbroken. Sasha is frozen in horror, speechless at his cruel words to his own sister. Clang? A fork drops to the ground. Flinch, Benya stands up and calls out Lethius's name, thinking to himself how sick he is of this. Looking down on his brother with contempt, Benya tells him that's enough. Lethius is enraged by Benya's smirk and accuses him of siding with Sasha again. Benya leans in and taunts his brother, asking if he's in love with her. Swish, Lethius scoffs, mocking Benya as a cliché romantic hero before throwing something in a rage. Whack! Benya snaps and punches Lethius squarely in the face, causing him to cry out. Tumble. Lethius stumbles backward from the force of the blow as someone screams his name in horror. Grasp. Sasha pulls a terrified Estelle into a protective embrace, yelling at Benya for what he's done. Pow! As Benya grabs his brother to hit him again, Sasha screams desperately for them to stop fighting. Whack! Benya continues to punch Lethius, ignoring Sasha's frantic pleas. Swing! The brothers trade insults and blows, with Lethius stumbling back after telling Benya he doesn't know his place. A bruised Lethius glares up from the floor, claiming he only let Benya have his way because he's younger. Sasha looks on in absolute fury, shielding a frightened Estelle behind her. Whoosh! Enraged by the insult, Benya raises his leg to kick his brother. Leap! Sasha suddenly lunges between the two brothers to block the attack. Grasp. Benya's eyes widen in horror as he stops his kick just inches from Sasha, realizing what he almost did. Whack! Sasha cries out as she takes the full force of the blow, falling to the floor with a shocked gasp. Gasp. Estelle covers her mouth in horror, while Benya yells Sasha's name in utter shock. Sasha lies on the ground in pain as a horrified Lethius stares down, choking on his words. Benya rushes to a groaning Sasha's side, frantically asking if she's all right, as Lethius stammers that he didn't mean to hit her. Yell! Estelle furiously screams at Lethius, questioning if he's lost his mind and telling him he'd better not have meant it. Fidget, as Estelle tearfully demands to know how he could hurt Sasha, a bruised and guilty Lethius tries to apologize. Estelle continues to berate her brothers, asking why they're always whining when Sasha does everything for them. Sniffle. Overwhelmed, Estelle begins to cry, wiping away tears of frustration. In a morbid fantasy, Estelle imagines them rotting away until they're old and skeletal, screaming that she's struggling to keep her frustrations in too. Crying, Estelle unleashes her pain on Lethius, screaming that she hates him even more than their Uncle Jerome. Thud. Lethius is struck speechless by his sister's cruel words, a single tear running down his bruised cheek. Groan. Sasha leans against a bookshelf, clutching her stomach and thinking about the numbing pain. Sasha looks up with a pained expression as a voice calls out her name. Whimper. Lethius timidly peeks out from behind a bookshelf to ask if she's all right, looking to Sasha like a guilty puppy. Sasha bluntly tells him there's nothing he can do about it, cutting off his stammered apology. Sigh. Sasha dismisses his apology, stating that she was the one who jumped in, and that the blow wasn't that painful. Lethius clarifies that he's not just sorry for hitting her. He deeply regrets all the cruel things he said, and didn't mean them. He confesses that the uncertainty of their situation and the feeling of betrayal made him lash out and vent his anger on her. Lethius looks down and offers a sincere, heartfelt apology to a silent Sasha. Sigh. Sasha closes her eyes, thinking to herself that, given their situation, she can't really blame the boys for their outbursts. Sasha shifts the topic, asking Lethius if he has any idea who might be deliberately keeping them locked up. Admitting she has no clue since everyone was always nice to them, Sasha watches as Lethius thoughtfully considers the question. Lethius recalls signing papers the night before they were taken, delegating family operations to his uncles and handing over the bank seal ring. Sasha realizes the uncles legally secured power but can't manipulate the bank since they concealed the children's disappearance as studies abroad. She considers that since the countries of Phthia and Xerxesia are close, nobles travel between them often, meaning people would notice if the children were missing. Voicing Estelle's fears, Sasha wonders if they'll be trapped until they die, while Lethius bites his finger, refusing to accept such a fate. Sasha gently encourages Lethius, reminding him that he's the Serpenti heir and needs to be strong. Flinch. Lethius is touched by her faith in him, as she asks who else could possibly lead the family. With a sad smile, he questions if he still deserves the title, admitting his confidence fades more each day. Sasha offers a warm, reassuring smile, telling him she knows he will be a great leader. She reminds him that her mother comes from a line of gypsies, implying she has a sense for these things. Beaming with confidence, Sasha declares that he'll surely make a great heir, her words echoing through his mind. In a lighter moment, Estella asks if Lethius apologized to Sasha, who confirms he did while he looks away in embarrassment. The narration explains that this event brought changes. Estelle tells Sasha not to forgive him easily, but Sasha insists she's fine. They stop talking about when they might be let out, a silent agreement settling over the group. Standing at the open doorway, the children's unspoken pact, not to mention their release, led to even bigger changes in their lives. Whack. In the library, Lethius and Benya have started training, clashing makeshift wooden swords together. Holding a stack of books, a stern Sasha looks over and demands to know what the two brothers are doing. Lethius and Estelle cheerfully greet Sasha, with Lethius happily announcing the arrival of their dear sister. Lethius proudly declares their activity to be swordsmanship training, leaving a chibi Sasha utterly baffled by their choice of swords. Matthias gives a confident wink, asserting that they need to keep training themselves to stay sharp. Nod, nod. The brothers smugly agree with each other that Sasha is different from them, who just whine all the time. Arg. Sasha clutches her head in frustration, lamenting that this wasn't the kind of positive change she was hoping for. Estelle asks Sasha what on earth she told the boys, though she admits she's glad they're no longer fighting. Slap. Lethius decides Estelle should also work on self-improvement, much to her surprise. He explains that as a Serpente noble, she must learn to dance for the royal court, an idea Estelle finds disgusting. Grumble. Estelle complains that she can't dance without music, and never learned properly because she was always sick. Wriggle. Ignoring her protests, Lethius grabs a struggling Estelle, cheerfully telling her to get ready for her lesson. Clip. The scene transforms, showing Lethius leading a beautifully dressed Estelle in a graceful dance. Clip. A chibi Lethius playfully compliments Estelle, noting that she's doing great despite her initial reluctance. Benya maintains a serene posture during their dance lesson, while Chibi Estelle complains that his compliment almost made her miss a step. The dance lesson concludes with a final, deliberate step. Panting heavily and exhausted, Estelle complains to Lethius that he's dancing too fast for her. Flop. Estelle collapses in a heap, but Lethius announces she's not done yet. She still has to dance with Benya. Lethius gives a cheerful wink, claiming it was Sasha's idea, before awkwardly asking Benya to dance with him since he hates it just as much. Piffed, Sasha bursts out laughing as Benya looks utterly disgusted, asking his brother if he's crazy and flatly refusing to dance with him. Benya thoughtfully considers the situation, noting they'll need an even number of partners for the lessons to work. Flinch, he suddenly calls out to a surprised Sasha, telling her to get over there. Benya and Lethius stand together and formally announce to Sasha that they will teach her how to dance. Spring! Estelle pops up excitedly, much to a chibi Sasha's surprise. Beaming with joy, Estelle enthusiastically supports the idea of teaching Sasha to dance. Lethius agrees they need Sasha for an even number of partners, and Estelle eagerly grabs her, exclaiming that it's time to get her in a dress. A flustered Sasha realizes Estelle is just excited to dress her up like a doll. By candlelight, an unseen person tells Benya that he should also change his clothes for the occasion. Dressed in a frilly pink gown, Sasha stands awkwardly, looking uncomfortable. A chibi Sasha pouts as someone off-screen insists the dress suits her perfectly. Reach? Benya extends his hand, formally inviting a hesitant Sasha to dance. Benya gently pulls Sasha into a dance hold, telling her to let the music flow through her. He smiles and encourages her to imagine they are in a grand dance hall. Sasha grumbles that it's hard to imagine the scene when they're trapped in a dusty library. Pull, Benya draws her closer, calmly instructing her to relax her arms and meet his gaze. Blushing furiously, Sasha thinks that looking into his eyes is the hardest part and wonders if this is the same Benya she knows. Benya gazes down at her with a gentle, confident smile. Sasha confirms to herself that this is indeed him, while in another corner, Lethius pats Estelle's head, praising her for doing well on her first try. Sasha watches the brothers bicker with a small, warm smile. She reflects that this must be how the villainess from the novel, a low-born nanny's daughter, learned to dance so elegantly. The narration explains that the original Sasha always appeared at high society dances with the Serpente brothers. Her presence as a commoner in their exclusive world caused the other nobles to look on with contempt. But trying to drive Sasha out of a party was a risky move, because it meant becoming an enemy of the powerful Serpente family, who always protected her. The scene transitions to a quiet view of the starry night sky from a window. Several months later, winter has arrived, and Sasha reflects on how they've grown accustomed to tower life as a door creaks open. She admits, however, that they still had moments of overwhelming despair. Slam! A fist crashes down as someone yells that the situation is ridiculous. The children have started a role-playing game. A shivering Lethius, as a debtor, questions his massive debt, while Benya, the loan shark, scoffs at him. Estelle joins in as an accomplice, smugly asking Lethius if he isn't grateful they saved him from bankruptcy. Sasha watches on, realizing with exasperation that their new game is playing evil loan sharks. Estelle spots Sasha and greets her happily, while Sasha remembers that the Serpente family fortune was indeed built on high-interest loans. Achoo. Estelle lets out a sudden sneeze, and Sasha immediately asks if she's cold. Wrap. As Estelle admits she's cold, Sasha gently wraps her own warm cardigan around her sister's shoulders. Huddled together, Estelle thanks a warm Sasha while both boys sniffle, agreeing that it's cold. Sniffling, Lethius suggests sword training to warm up, but Benya warns him that he'll collapse if he pushes himself any further. Sasha holds Estelle close, thinking that keeping moving is the best way to fight the biting cold. She looks over at their only source of warmth, a single, small stove. A flashback shows books burning as the narration explains they couldn't burn them for fuel, as Benya feared the fire might spread uncontrollably. Their hardships mounted in the cold, laundry would freeze solid, and baths became a luxury to conserve precious firewood. But the narration reveals their greatest concern through it all was Estelle's fragile health. A text panel emphasizes that while hygiene was important, catching a cold in their situation was a far more dangerous problem. Lethius, wrapped in a thick blanket, sniffles and resigns himself to their situation, stating they have no other choice. With a mischievous grin, Lethius holds up a purple butterfly, confusing Sasha, Benya, and Estelle with his sudden change in mood. Swish! With a manic grin, Lethius leaps towards a startled Benya, demanding he come here. Tumble. Watching the two brothers wrestle on the floor, an exasperated Sasha wonders what on earth they're doing now. Hug. Lethius rubs his face against a blushing Benya, happily declaring that his brother is warm while Benya thinks this is madness. Shove. Lethius pushes Benya's face away, demanding he get off and calling him gross, only to immediately sneeze while admitting he doesn't enjoy it either. Eek. Benya shouts he'd rather freeze to death than hug his brother, causing a theatrically heartbroken Lethius to cry out at his harsh words. Dusting himself off, a blushing Lethius turns to Estelle for support, asking if she heard what Benya said. Turn. Estelle slowly turns to face her brother. She shoves Lethius away, telling him to go away because he smells. Thud. Lethius falls to the floor in complete shock, muttering about the smell. Jolt. Trembling, Lethius declares that they're all so mean before suddenly collapsing. Whoosh! Benya's hand shoots out to catch him. With a triumphant grin, Lethius pulls everyone into a tight group hug, refusing to give up as the others struggle with annoyed expressions. Eek! Sasha closes her eyes, thinking he's a handful but admitting that at least the group hug is a little less cold. Squeeze. As the kids tumble in a heap, Estelle and Benya cry out in protest while Lethius laughs, creating what the narration calls a complete mess. Tap. Sasha is startled as someone takes her hand. Holding hands, Sasha notes Benya's are cold, and he retorts that hers are like ice, while in the background, Lethius continues to chase Estelle. Smile. Sasha watches the others with a fond, blushing smile, wondering what they're doing. She thinks to herself that at least holding hands makes her feel slightly warmer. Her thoughts are interrupted as she notices a figure standing in a dark doorway. Done, Viscount Jerome Hippolyte stands in the entrance, looking shocked at the scene before him. Spring! Sasha sits bolt upright in bed, wondering if she's dreaming as she sees Jerome mumbling in the doorway, realizing it's truly him. Shuffle. Estelle shifts in her sleep, complaining that she's cold, which causes Jerome to gasp with a look of pained concern. A voice from another room summons Jerome, telling him to come without waking the children. Cradling a sleeping Estelle, Sasha internally panics, realizing this is the first time they've all slept together and questioning why Jerome had to appear now. She internally scolds herself for not sending them to their rooms, noticing the lingering smell of smoke from the stove. Click. Carrying a pot, Sasha recalls thinking Jerome wouldn't show up until later in the winter. She considers his shocked reaction, wondering if he was appalled to see his noble relatives huddled with a commoner. Taking a step forward, she realizes his reaction means he still has some affection left for them, and she breaks into a run. She runs down the hall, hoping that the shock he felt might finally convince him to let the children go. A promotional panel for the story, A Fairy Tale for Villains, appears. Click. Sasha arrives before Jerome, who sternly tells her to explain what happened in her own words. Glance. Looking up at her uncle, Sasha wonders how she can possibly persuade him to free the children. Jerome faces her, coldly stating that her silence means she knows she's made a mistake. Squeeze. Clenching his fist, he tells a confused Sasha that he was completely wrong about her. Sigh. Jerome laments that he mistakenly believed she and her mother knew their place, before glaring and deciding his previous thoughts were wrong. Point. He furiously accuses her of daring to sleep with his niece and nephews, questioning if it was her plan all along. A flustered Sasha stammers, asking him to pardon her. The story's title, A Happy Ending for Villains, is displayed for episode 15. Sasha defiantly retorts that he has no right to blame her, since he's the one who locked them up, stating she only stays for Estelle's sake. With a sharp glare, Sasha tells him that his family's favor to her mother doesn't mean she can dream of having his nephews. Addressing him as your lordship, Sasha tries to explain that it's a misunderstanding while he calls her a bastard. She continues that it's freezing and they can't let Estelle get sick. Sob. Jerome cries, saying he knows he shouldn't have done this, but he can do nothing, while a tearful Sasha thinks she's only able to serve Estelle by his grace. Squeeze. Clutching the warm clothes they gave her, she thinks to herself that he can't even confront the person actually to blame for their situation. Her internal monologue continues, accusing him of only showing up to deceive them before running away like a coward. She bravely asks how long the children must stay imprisoned and warns him not to insult her mother, leaving him speechless. Sigh. Jerome covers his face, finally admitting he knows it must be hard for them. He mumbles that despite their hardship, the children still look after their servant girl, while Sasha smiles faintly, wondering if he's decided to overlook the situation. Viscount Jerome remembers something and asks Sasha if she would help them, As a gray-haired man responds to an order, Sasha realizes from her novel knowledge that they were meant to be moved while sleeping. Meanwhile, Jerome obediently agrees to a command. Sasha looks on in stunned silence, a sweat drop forming on her face. Done! The gray-haired man stands over the chests and barrels, asking if his lord needs anything else. Viscount Jerome hums thoughtfully as a worried Sasha stands beside him on the stairs. Glancing at Sasha, Jerome instructs her to move the items inside, which she agrees to do, realizing this must be the answer to her question about their survival. A breeze blows through an open doorway, and Sasha is stunned, realizing the door is open and that this is her chance to escape. Deciding she must run, Sasha makes a break for it, but dash! Viscount Jerome grabs her arm, yelling for her to wait. Viscount Jerome furiously shouts at Sasha, demanding she come back right now. As Jerome screams her name, Sasha runs into the light, exclaiming that she's outside. Huff! Huff! Sasha pants as she flees, determined to keep running, her heart pounding as she wonders what comes next. Her escape comes to a halt as she questions where to go, remembering the harsh truth from the novel. It's impossible to leave, a fact she already knew. Flinch! Sasha clenches her fist in frustration, her face contorted with anger at her own futility. Caught, Sasha looks back nervously and asks, "Yes, my lord?" Viscount Jerome impatiently orders her to hurry up and move the chests, and she obediently agrees. Covering her mouth, Sasha worries she's going crazy from the confinement, but recalls a promise that they will all be able to leave this place eventually, no matter what. Jerome asks Sasha to console the children and continue caring for them, and she agrees once more. Click! She stands before the mirror again, her head bowed as she stares at her faceless reflection. Looking at the supplies, Sasha thinks it's funny she almost feels grateful, knowing that such hope would only torment them. Gazing up a spiral staircase, she wonders what Jerome meant about leaving soon, and if he plans to sneak them out. As Sasha's thoughts question the commotion, Lethius appears, looking down at the supplies in utter amazement. Lethius beams with excitement, asking what all the new items are. Sasha explains that their uncle must have visited, but privately reflects that they can only wait for him now, lamenting that she was punished for accepting her fate too easily. A grim narration foretells that the worst thing imaginable happens soon after. Shake! Shake! A hand gently rouses Sasha from her sleep. As Sasha awakens, the scene flashes forward several months to spring, revealing a withdrawn Estelle clutching her doll as Sasha recalls another fight between Lethius and Benya that ruined the kitchen. Sasha looks on with concern as she remembers that Jerome never visited again after bringing the supplies months ago. A spotlight shines down into darkness as the narration states that the three siblings' conditions rapidly deteriorated. A frail Estelle sits alone in a chair, her condition having turned particularly bad. Jump! Sasha lands near a sullen Benya, her inner voice noting that he skipped dinner. Benya looks up from his solitary spot, asking Sasha why she's there. Sasha explains that Estelle told her about the fight in the kitchen and asks if he's hurt. Benya offers a gentle, reassuring smile with his eyes closed. He tells Sasha he is fine and urges her to stay by Estelle's side. Sasha reflects internally that nobody is fine, and that if the Duke and Duchess could see their children now. A portrait of the Duke and Duchess appears as Sasha thinks of the immense heartache they would feel. Sasha tries to comfort Benya, saying she understands him and also why Lethius has changed, while a distraught Lethius is seen in the background. Frown. Benya cuts her off, angrily insisting that Lethius should never act that way. He argues that as the heir of the Serpente family, Lethius is supposed to unite and encourage them during difficult times. He passionately declares that leadership is Lethius's job, especially while Sasha and Estelle try so hard to hide their own frustration before slumping over in despair. Benya concludes that he can't forgive Lethius for acting like a fool, prompting a pained Benya from Sasha's thoughts. Sasha continues to think Benya's name with a look of deep concern. Benya reveals he has been questioning who betrayed them and why they're being kept alive, concluding he's realized one certain thing, and Sasha asks what it is. Grim, with eyes glowing fiercely, Benya states that he is completely disgusted by their captor's half-baked charade of sympathy. Overwhelmed by emotion, Benya buries his face in his hand. As a vision of Viscount Jerome appears, Benya internally scorns their captors for their mediocre ideas and degrading actions disguised as mercy. Snicker, Benya smiles coldly, since he no longer can count on Lethius, a realization that thuds in Sasha's heart. Whimper, Sasha calls out Benya's name, her mind racing with the knowledge that they will be free in a year, though the world will never know of their imprisonment. She reflects that their survival will be twisted into a story of mercy, allowing the masterminds behind their suffering to escape any consequences. Sasha reflects on a main character's duty to right the wrongs, before vowing never to trust anyone again, not even family, after being betrayed. In a memory, Sasha reassures a grieving Benya that the funeral wasn't his fault, while a determined Letheus chokes back his emotions, blaming the traitors. Holding someone's hand, a smiling Sasha from the past gently tells them not to blame themselves. The narration explains that for supporting characters like them, the moment of freedom will actually be a miserable time. The narration continues, suggesting that the main character of the novel might appear to them like a savior. Fidget. Back in the present, Sasha shifts in her sleep next to Estelle, the tower looming outside their window. Groan. Sasha wakes up with a start, realizing the bed feels unnaturally hot. Her eyes fly open in shock as she senses something is wrong. Calling out Estelle's name, Sasha sees her sister panting heavily, her face flushed with fever. Benya appears in the doorway with a basin of water, his face etched with worry. Watching over a sick Estelle, Sasha anxiously notes that her fever shows no signs of breaking. Sasha despairs over their lack of medicine, while Benya urges her to rest before she falls ill as well. Sasha refuses to leave, determined to prevent the boys from catching the fever, but a weak Estelle grabs her, pleading for her to stop. Firm in her resolve, Sasha says she can't rest, only for a shivering Estelle to call her name and whisper that she's cold. Sniffle. As Sasha touches her forehead, a trembling Estelle repeats that she feels incredibly cold. Sasha watches her sister suffering with a pained expression, feeling utterly helpless. In just 3 days, Estelle has wasted away, her features sunken and her hair lifeless, looking as if she is dying. Thud. A horrifying thought strikes Sasha. What if Estelle dies from this fever? Wobble. She stumbles back in terror, frantically trying to banish the thought from her mind. Convinced Harris and the others are ignoring her pleas for help on purpose, Sasha resolves that she has to do something herself. She decides to take a desperate risk, even if it means being discovered and killed. Rattle. Click. Mister. Harris wheels the food cart into a side room, unaware of his hidden passenger. Sigh. He pauses, wiping his brow and complaining that the task is becoming cumbersome. A red-haired maid on the other side of the cart voices her agreement. As the maid complains about being questioned, Mr. Harris dismissively tells her to make an excuse, as they are too busy with the banquet to be bothered. The scene transitions to a grand, brightly lit mansion. Alive with preparations for the evening's festivities, inside the banquet hall bustles, with servants rushing to set up for the Viscounts and other guests. Tisk. Mr. Harris turns his back on the food cart, ready to leave. Click. He abandons the cart against a stone wall. Click. The cart sits unattended in the quiet corridor. The abandoned cart remains still and silent. Lift. A hand slowly raises the white sheet covering the cart's contents. Slip. Sasha peeks out from her hiding spot on the bottom shelf of the cart, checking if the coast is clear. She recalls her anxiety about being discovered due to her weight, but feels relieved that the cart was large and Harris unobservant. A brief image shows a sharp-looking, white-haired young man with his arms crossed next to a smiling, blue-haired young man. Sasha finds herself in the tea preparation room and realizes her simple clothes will get her caught, deciding she must change immediately. Rattle. Remembering that spare uniforms were kept in a drawer, she finds a set and size in relief. Pull. She quickly ties the ribbons of a maid's bonnet behind her head. Now disguised in a full maid's uniform and holding a pitcher, Sasha prepares to move through the mansion. Bustle. As she walks, she wonders if any old servants remain, but assumes most were dismissed after the family's tragedy. A voice from nearby calls for someone named Abel to come and taste a cake. Bustle. 2 maids are overwhelmed with work, one asking for help and the other replying that everyone is too busy. Peeking around a corner, Sasha realizes a banquet is underway and notes that most of the servants are unfamiliar faces. She hopes the busy atmosphere will provide the perfect cover for her to slip by unnoticed. With renewed determination, she focuses on her primary mission, to find Jerome as quickly as possible. She hesitates, wondering if she should seek help from someone else, picturing a distressed, blue-haired man. Deciding it's too risky to trust a stranger who might wish them harm, she concludes that finding Jerome is her only safe option. A lush bouquet of flowers fills the screen, signaling a transition. The scene shifts to a memory of a lavish ball, with couples dancing on a grand staircase. Viscount Jerome Hippolyte is seen laughing heartily at the party, while from a balcony above, Sasha looks down on the scene. Sasha's face contorts with anger, her red eyes burning with resentment. She reflects that the banquet seems just as she remembers, but the mansion's true masters are no longer present. Her thoughts turn to Estelle, who is dying on the top floor of the bell tower while the party goes on below. Meanwhile, a despairing Benya and Lethius suffocate in fear and anxiety, knowing they are the ones who deserve to be at the banquet. Believing everything rightfully belongs to the children, Sasha fumes at the liars enjoying the party, but realizes Jerome is the only one who can help them now. Step. Someone in elegant attire ascends a grand staircase. Panicked, Sasha realizes with dread that someone is approaching. Gasp! She covers her mouth, knowing she'll be discovered if she doesn't hide. A young man with blonde hair and a formal blue suit appears, and Sasha nervously wonders if it's Mr. Harris. The young man looks up with a start, his eyes meeting Sasha's in a moment of shared shock. Phew. Having found a moment of peace on a balcony, the blonde young man sighs in relief. Sparkle? He smiles faintly, a subtle blush on his cheeks. Hiding behind a row of flowers, Sasha watches him in disbelief. As she notes his blonde hair and deep purple eyes, she flinches when a voice from afar calls for "Your Highness," confirming her suspicions. Off-panel voices search for His Highness, with one person mentioning they saw him heading upstairs. The blonde young man looks anxious, realizing they'll find him if he stays on the balcony. Sasha concludes that he is indeed the Crown Prince, the novel's main character, and is stunned to meet him under these circumstances. As the prince walks by, she wonders why he is attending the banquet. Seeing this as her only chance, she resolves to approach him and ask for help, certain he can save them. The prince turns to leave as Sasha frantically weighs her options, worried she'll be stopped before she can explain. Throwing caution to the wind, Sasha grabs the arm of a man in a blue coat. But it's not the prince. It's a furious Jerome, who demands to know what she's doing there. Jerome glares, interrogating her about how she escaped and what she intended to tell the crown prince. Crying, Sasha clings to his arm and begs for help, telling him that Lady Estelle is dying. Halt. Jerome freezes, and Sasha quickly explains that Estelle has been sick with a fever for 4 days and desperately needs a doctor. As Sasha warns that Estelle is going to die, Jerome's face darkens, and he whispers his niece's name. Ah! In a sudden burst of rage, Jerome violently shoves Sasha to the ground with a slam, shouting that he'll have her killed. Spring! Back in the tower room, Benya and Lethius watch in shock as Sasha is thrown inside, and Benya cries out her name. Ugh. Lethius catches the stumbling Sasha, asking what happened to her. Weakly coughing, Sasha explains that she went to tell Lord Jerome about Estelle's condition. She recounts how she was caught sneaking out and was forcibly dragged back by Mr. Harris. As Lethius asks about their uncle, Sasha speculates that Jerome must have gone to see Estelle. Dab. Jerome gently touches Estelle's burning forehead, his voice full of concern as he says her name. Tap. At Estelle's bedside, Jerome gently checks her temperature again, murmuring her name. Blink. Estelle's eyes flutter open, tears streaming from them as she awakens. Through a hazy fever, Jerome calls out for both Sasha and Estelle, his voice filled with anguish. Squeeze! Estelle's hand weakly tightens on Jerome's sleeve. As Jerome looks down at her, she whispers that it hurts. His face fills with shock and pain as she tells him just how much. Her voice echoes through a hazy memory, whispering how much it hurts. Creak. Back in the tower room, Jerome rises from Estelle's bedside. He turns to face Sasha, Benya, and Lethius, who stand together with apprehensive expressions. Sasha pleads with Jerome, insisting that Lady Estelle requires immediate medical attention. Choke. She grows frantic, explaining that their medicines won't work, and begging him to fetch a doctor as Jerome flinches at her desperate cries. In tears, Sasha warns that if something isn't done soon, Lady Estelle is going to die. Thud. The weight of her words hits Jerome, his face darkening with horror. Whack! Suddenly, Mr. Harris strikes Sasha on the head with a heavy book, and she cries out in pain. Sigh, mister? Harris lets out a tired breath, his expression grim. He tells Jerome that he had offered to handle the situation, as Benya and Lethius rush to help the fallen Sasha. Grit, Jerome clenches his jaw, angrily questioning why Sasha had to get involved while the banquet was still in progress. Hey! Lethius explodes with rage, demanding to know how Mr. Harris dared to hit Sasha. Benya's face contorts with a matching fury. Clench. A fist tightens in anger. Benya erupts with fury, screaming at Mr. Harris for daring to lay his hands on Sasha. With a shove, Benya sends a startled Mr. Harris reeling backward. The scene tumbles into chaos. Whack! Benya lands a solid punch on Mr. Harris. He roars at Mr. Harris, furiously questioning who he thinks he is. The sound of the blow echoes through the room. Mr. Harris pleads for him to stop, but Benya winds up for another punch. Consumed by a cold rage, Benya relentlessly attacks Mr. Harris, the world spinning around him. Lethius and Sasha can only stare in stunned silence at the sudden violence. Wobble. The fierce assault leaves Benya swaying unsteadily on his feet. Sasha and Lethius watch in horror as Benya begins to collapse from the exertion. Grab. He catches himself on a chair, his eyes still burning with uncontrolled fury. Yelling, "You bastard!" Lethius lunges at Mr. Harris with a candlestick in hand. Whack! He brings the candlestick down on Mr. Harris, who cries out in pain as Jerome springs forward, yelling Lethius' name. Jerome looks down in disbelief as a trembling Mr. Harris clutches his injured arm. Livid, Jerome scolds Lethius for his primitive behavior and cruelty toward Mr. Harris, reminding him of how the man cared for them. Choke, Lethius retorts, asking if Jerome is blind to Estelle's illness or the fact that Benya was struck, as their uncle helps the injured servant away. Enough, Jerome shouts, grabbing his head in frustration and admonishing them for being so arrogant toward their helpers. Declaring that he doubts they can ever be let out, Jerome orders them to stay and think about what they've done before slamming the door shut. Click. The door locks, leaving Sasha and Lethius staring in disbelief, wondering if they've truly been abandoned. Lethius asks a wobbling Sasha if she's all right, and she chokes back a sob while weakly agreeing. But as tears well in her eyes, she admits that none of them are fine at all. Their anxieties swirl. Estelle worries if the Viscount will bring a doctor. Lethius fears Harris's future treatment, and Benya frets about revenge via their food, while an image shows Jerome and Harris chuckling. Overwhelmed by dread, Sasha braces herself for the worst. A gentle memory surfaces, filled with a soft song about blue and green lavender. In a sunny field, a woman with orange hair comforts Sasha, her voice recalling a promise of love and a fondness for dance, as Sasha recognizes the familiar sound. "Oh, it's Mom," Sasha thinks, remembering her mother's voice and a sweet promise. She calls out for her mom in the dream, and a gentle voice seems to answer. The dream darkens as Sasha thinks of Estelle's sickness, and her mother's voice temptingly offers her a chance to rest, which Sasha questions. She wonders how her mother knew she was so tired of everything. Grasp! As the tempting voice calls her name, Sasha gasps, snapping awake from the dream. Benya leans over her, a finger to his lips to quiet her. She realizes she dozed off after Estelle's fever broke slightly, seeing her sister resting with a compress on her head. Benya whispers for her to come outside, leaving Sasha to wonder what is happening. Cling! A basin of water is set down with a quiet sound. A wave of doom washes over Sasha as she covers her mouth in absolute horror. On the bathroom floor lies a pair of scissors next to a bathtub filled with bloody water. A faucet runs nearby, the sound of water filling the silence. Her worst fears are realized as she finds Lethius slumped in the tub, having slit his wrists, and she screams his name in terror. The horrifying image of a lifeless Lethius burns into her mind as her desperate scream echoes. Blink. Lethius's eyes slowly open. He is now lying safely in bed. At his bedside, Sasha and Benya watch with relief and concern as Sasha calls out his name. Grit. Benya's relief turns to fury as he yanks Lethius's shirt, demanding to know why he did it. He tells his brother that if he wants to die, he should jump out a window instead of stinking up their room with his corpse. Benya asks if he needs to be watched constantly, while a weary Lethius looks away, admitting he's sick of everything. Shove. Benya pushes him back onto the bed in frustration. Benya calls out to his brother again as Lethius sits dejectedly on the bed, Sasha watching them both. Sasha looks on, her expression a mixture of pain, exhaustion, and despair. Overwhelmed with despair, Lethius stares at the floor. Halt! Hearing footsteps on the stairs, Sasha calls out Benya's name. Benya turns back with a grim expression as Sasha looks on, asking what she wants. Visibly distressed, Sasha begins to confront him about his behavior. She tells Benya he was too harsh on Lethius, and he looks down in somber silence. Sasha recalls a vision of a cowering Lethius versus a proud one, thinking he was never truly weak or hopeless. Remembering his bloody wrist, she thinks to herself that he would never have tried to abandon them. Benya turns to Sasha, his hope drained, and asks if she still thinks they can escape, admitting he sometimes wishes they would all die together. Shocked by his words, Sasha can only whisper his name. Hold! Sasha embraces a stunned Benya, asking if he would believe she saw a future where they escape in 6 months by killing Mr. Harris during a banquet. As she holds him, Benya asks what they would do about the people who trapped them there. Tears streaming down her face, Sasha clings to Benya with grim determination, her thoughts turning to bloody revenge. We kill them all. Elsewhere, Viscount Jerome looks up at the tower, seething with anger over the children's actions. Walking through the estate, Jerome internally fumes about sacrificing so much for his brothers to keep them alive while no one else cared. Just before a voice asks where he has been, flinch. Jerome recoils in shock as another man with light blue hair approaches him with a step. Jerome is confronted by two older men, Sir Cosmo and Sir Gonzalo, his great-uncles, who question why he's there and accuse him of visiting the tower again. Sir Gonzalo scoffs that it's obvious Jerome went to see if the children were dead, and a fidgeting Jerome apologizes, claiming he heard Estelle was sick. Enraged, Sir Gonzalo asks if Jerome has gone mad, warning that starting rumors about the children being locked away will get them all killed. With a glance, Sir Cosmo smirks, as if he knows something more. His eye begins to twitch as Sir Gonzalo coldly states that Estelle was always destined to die young anyway. Jerome nervously agrees, but explains he thought sending a doctor might help gain the children's trust in the long run. With a cough, Sir Gonzalo dismisses the idea, claiming Jerome has been too soft, and that the children have surely realized the truth by now. Sir Gonzalo tells Jerome to stop the meaningless act because the children are as good as dead, but a knock-knock interrupts them as a servant arrives. The servant announces they are summoned by Count Bavorio, and the great-uncles agree to go, annoyed that they haven't been able to enjoy the banquet. Left alone, Jerome looks up at the tower, defiantly thinking that he is the only one who cares about the children and declaring his own innocence. Creak. The scene shifts as the Crown Prince stands outside an ornate door, asking for permission to enter. The Crown Prince, now identified as Ashad Avalonia, asks his aide if he found the girl he was looking for. The brown-haired aide apologizes, reporting that he searched the entire manor for an amber-haired maid, but found no trace of her, not even on the terrace. Ashad suggests asking the servants, but his aide replies that he already questioned them discreetly, and no one knew of a maid matching her description. Prince Ashad recalls the brief moment he saw the girl on the staircase. In a flashback, Lethas tells Sasha that the boy before them is the Imperial Prince. The flashback continues as the prince asks who Sasha is, and Lethas introduces her as someone he considers a sister, prompting her to offer a polite greeting. Back in the present, Ashad looks out the window, absolutely certain that the girl he saw was her. Determined, he gives a silent order to discreetly bring him the captain of the Python Order of Knights. Sigh, back in the tower, an exhausted Sasha wipes away a tear. Following Lethas' incident, the new year begins, bringing a change. Done. Their greatest fears are realized as they are served meager, unappetizing food. With a glance, Sasha notes that something else has changed as well. Mr. Harris no longer bothers with secrecy, and now brings their food openly, accompanied by a red-haired servant. Sasha cautiously approaches Mr. Harris, who curtly asks what she wants. Fighting back tears, Sasha explains that Estelle is sick, they are out of medicine, and she needs food that is easier to swallow. As she requests more fuel for warmth, Mr. Harris simply strokes his chin, looking utterly displeased. A fist clenches tightly as someone off-screen calls out to the Chamberlain. Lethas glares at Mr. Harris, furiously demanding to know why he brought them garbage when his sister is sick. Grab! Lethas seizes Mr. Harris by the collar, and, with a crash, throws the tray of food to the floor, screaming that his sister is sick. Arr! Mr. Harris growls in fury as Sasha cries out his name in alarm. The red-haired servant grabs Lethas, who struggles violently, and screams to be let go. Fuming, Mr. Harris calms himself and clutches a tray, quietly pleading for the chaos to stop. Whack! Mr. Harris strikes Lethas with a pitcher while shouting about all he does for them, before smashing it on the ground. As servants restrain Lethas and Sasha, she screams his name and then, with a vicious bite, sinks her teeth into the arm of the man holding her. Yank! Screaming in pain, Sasha is grabbed by the hair as Mr. Harris calls her a crazy wench, and Benya glares with fury. Slam! Mr. Harris throws Sasha to the floor, and a concerned Lethas rushes to her side, asking if she's alright as she groans. Sasha and Lethas share a look of mutual shock and alarm. Whoosh! As another man raises a cane to strike, Lethas shields Sasha with his own body while she screams in terror. Dish! A foot steps forward, closing the distance in an instant. Thwack! A blinding flash of light signifies a brutal impact. Shielded by Lethas, Sasha glances up in confusion, her expression quickly turning to wide-eyed horror. Drip! Lethius looks down at his hand, now covered in his own blood. Racked with pain and bleeding from his mouth, Lethius cries out in denial before biting down on his own shoulder. Lethius lets out a blood-curdling scream of agony as Sasha cries out his name in terror. Benya and Sasha rush to Lethius' side as he collapses to the floor, clutching his bleeding face. As Lethius trembles, moaning in agony, Sasha can only think, "Oh no." Wiping blood from his face, Mr. Harris dusts off his suit and scoffs at the children, calling them ungrateful bastards. Mr. Harris coldly informs the children they will die and rot there, and that no one will ever care. Thud. Benya rises in anger, but he quickly grabs Sasha to hold her back as she cries out. The menacing shadow of Mr. Harris looms over them as Sasha thinks that provoking him will get them killed. With a final snicker, the bloodied Chamberlain wishes the children a lovely day before turning to leave them in their misery. Sasha kneels beside the injured Lethius, gently asking if she can see his hand. Lethius moves his hand, revealing a horribly wounded eye as he cries out in pain. Benya stands near the bed, his expression cold and resolute. Benya calls out to the others as Sasha checks on Lethius, who replies that his injury is bearable. Lethius continues, voicing his fear about what might happen. When Lethius worries about being blind in one eye, Benya coldly tells him to just think of it as a style. Lethius, his eye bandaged, chuckles at the idea of being a one-eyed duke, but quickly dismisses it, resigning himself to dying there. Benya fiercely rejects this, glaring as he declares they are getting out and orders Lethius to survive no matter what. A vision shows an older Lethius with an eye patch, vowing that everyone who looked down on the Serpente family will pay the price. Benya agrees with the plan for revenge, grimly stating that their captors will kill them eventually anyway. As they tend to Lethius, he worries about guards outside the tower, which Benya admits is why he hesitated before. Sasha realizes they have to leave to find out. Sasha privately questions if they can really defeat the brutish and powerful Mr. Harris. Looking at the stale food, she worries that they will only grow weaker if their food supply is cut off entirely. Benya calmly refutes her fears with a simple number. Sasha turns to him, confused by his confidence. She asks him how he can be so sure. Benya explains that Mr. Harris enjoys tormenting them, and if they'll die, he'll lose his pleasure. A faint, cunning smile appears on Benya's face. Lying in bed, Lethius grits his teeth and agrees, recalling how it felt like Harris was taking out his life's frustrations on them. Benya reveals his strategy. They will feign fear and desperation, lulling Harris into a false sense of security to create an opportunity to strike. Lethius points toward a broken wooden ladder in the room. The children brainstorm weapons, suggesting sharpened ladders or a lasso made from a belt to ambush Harris from behind. A determined Sasha touches her chin, asking if they are ready to commit to the plan. Benya reveals a key piece of information. There will be a family banquet in the early spring. He declares they'll make their move on that day, as a vision of the elegant banquet hall appears. The scene shifts to the lone tower at night, confirming their target is early spring. Snicker, Mr. Harris and the red-haired servant arrive with food carts, with Harris thinking how he's come to look forward to these visits. He internally gloats over the thrill of seeing the noble children broken, hopeless, and trembling in fear of him. Gleefully anticipating his chance to scare them, he opens the door. Finding only Sasha in the room, Mr. Harris demands to know where the others are. Hidden from sight, Lethius prepares a belt as a makeshift weapon, thinking he'll have to finish them off one by one. With a malevolent smile, Mr. Harris muses that perhaps it wouldn't hurt to kill one of them in advance. Sasha lets out a furious scream. As the man lunges, Lethius suddenly wraps a strap around Mr. Harris's neck from behind. Gack! Lethius chokes Mr. Harris, who struggles against the tightening strap, his face contorted in pain. Tears of terror stream down Mr. Harris's face as he is choked. Dash! The red-haired servant rushes forward, shouting Mr. Harris's name as Lethius continues to choke him. Not again, you little brats, the servant snarls, but swoosh, as he attacks with a knife, Benya intercepts the blow, and the blade sinks into his head. Splatter! A scream echoes as blood explodes from Benya's wound, covering his eye. Stumble! The red-haired servant reels back in shock, watching the bloody scene unfold. His heart pounds as Mr. Harris furiously thinks the situation is messed up and curses the children. Squeeze. Lethius tightens his hold on the strap around Mr. Harris's neck. Benya, blood covering his face and hand, stands beside a determined Sasha. Mr. Harris grabs Lethius's face, screaming at the Darn bastard. Clawing at Lethius's blindfold, Mr. Harris forces the boy to cry out in pain. Whack! Sasha slams a heavy candlestick into the back of Mr. Harris's head, causing him to wobble in shock. Lethius and Sasha pant heavily as they stand over the unconscious Chamberlain. Bloodied Benya tells Sasha he'll take care of the servant and instructs her to go with Lethius and get Estelle. A stunned Sasha looks back at him and hesitantly agrees. Click. As the door closes, Sasha resolves to follow his plan. Benya now stands alone over the other servant's unconscious body, holding the bloody knife. His expression is cold and resolved as he looks down at his victim. The red-haired servant lies motionless on the floor. Raising the bloody knife, Benya tells the unconscious man not to take it personally. Step, step. Sasha walks upstairs, announcing she'll carry Estelle. Carrying a sleeping Estelle on her back, Sasha follows Lethius up the stairs in silence. A bloody hand holds up a lit lantern as Sasha wonders where Benya and Harris are. Covered in blood, Benya holds the lantern and a bloody knife, having accomplished his grim task. Sasha's thoughts spiral into paranoia, worrying about other servants, guards, and unimaginable dangers awaiting them. As she worries that Estelle's condition will worsen, Lethius calls her name, breaking her out of her anxious thoughts. Benya gestures toward a brightly lit archway, telling her to look at the outside. He declares that it's time for them to finally leave, leaving Sasha speechless. Tears of shock and dawning hope fill Sasha's eyes. The weight of their actions settles in with a somber thought. If we ever end up dead, I won't have any regrets anymore, the thought concludes, as Benya agrees while the children stand poised to escape into the light. Whoosh! Sasha looks back one last time, her expression filled with a fierce, unwavering resolve.